and I'm reading the pattern and I'm looking at my sweater. The math is not mathing. Hello and welcome back to the Knitting Page channel. If you're new here, my name's Paige and I am the face behind the Knitting Page. Today I have a regular podcast episode for you, and this is podcast number 23. So kind of crazy. It has been a while since I've sat down and recorded and given you an update on what I am working on. So let's get straight to it. I have two finished objects today, one of which I am wearing. This is the Lakes sweater by Ozetta, the V-neck version, and I knit this in Briggs & Little Heritage in the brown heather colorway. I am obsessed with this heathering. There's like little flecks of orange and blue and green throughout it, but like from afar it does look like a neutral brown. I feel like me and everyone else has been very into brown. This is a Canadian wool. It is very affordable. I believe this is like $8 for an 100-gram skein. And so it's a very budget-friendly yarn. I purchased it from my local yarn store here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Fia, which is just a joy of a yarn store located in the north end of Halifax. I initially knit this sweater for my dad. He is a very knitworthy man, and I bought this yarn in December, November. Anyways, I had him on the phone and I was like, how do you feel about this yarn? You know, there are some like fuchsia, green, orange, blue, heathering embedded throughout this yarn. And I wasn't entirely sure if that was going to be up my dad's alleyway. There was another gentleman in the store and I was like, would you wear this color? Because I was obsessed with it. My dad said, let's go for it. And so I bought the yarn, I cast it on, I went back to visit my parents in Thunder Bay, Ontario during the March break. I am a teacher if you're new here. And so I had some time off in March, went back and visited, let my dad try the sweater on, and it sadly was not up to snuff. I'll include a picture of my dad here. He wore it the week I was there, but he did ask if I could make it a little bit longer. And so that is what I did, or that is what I'm planning to do. My mom was also not a fan of the brown on my dad. His like OG sweater, which does have moth holes in it, is a gray. And my mom was like, can you make the gray version for him? And I have some yarn from Topsy Farms, I believe, which is another Canadian yarn brand that is located just outside of Kingston, Ontario, that I purchased from a bike trip. And so my dad is going to get a Ozetta Lakes sweater, V-neck version in this lovely gray sheepy color. I think he'll like it a lot. I'm knitting it at a bit of a looser gauge as well. I knit this on 5mm needles, and I'm going to be knitting my dad's on 5.5 as per the recommendations in the pattern. This is a saddle shoulder construction, which I am a huge fan of. This is my second saddle shoulder garment. I knit the cardigan number 9, which is a favorite of mine. I wear it all the time. I always get compliments on it when I'm out, and I'll be like, yeah, I knit it. And people are always like, what? As you can probably relate to as you are out and about in your own hand knits. But I find that there's something, because it's so piecemeal until you get to the body, I find the saddle shoulder construction really does fly off the needles, and it's something that I'm reaching for time and time again, and that I see myself being attracted to. I have done the saddles of my dad's sweater, but I have not picked up and done the rest of the yoke for him, because I don't know the next time it'll probably be the summer, the next time I see my parents. And so I have been prioritizing some of my other whips, which I will get to in a little bit of time. I knit the pattern as recommended. I honestly don't even know if I followed the length recommendations for the body. I just kind of went on what looked good on me. I think I was sitting at a knit night, and which, if you are one of my knit night members, hello, just a lovely group of people that I knit with on Thursday nights here in Halifax. But pretty sure I held it up to myself and was like, yeah, this looks like a good length. And then I switched to ribbing and called it a day. I have worn this sweater a whole lot. It's funny, I don't have a lot of plain sweaters that I've knitted, and I'm realizing how much I gravitate towards these garments. It's, as you've all probably know, it's just kind of like a sweatshirt that you can put on, but it looks a little classier, a little nicer. I have a brown pair of dress pants, and so I oftentimes wear this sweater and my brown dress pants to work for a little monochromatic moment. Ozetta, if you haven't knit one of her patterns, is such a phenomenal pattern writer. Everything is clear, there's pictures, schematics. I feel like there's never a point when writing one of her patterns where I am unsure what to do and have to kind of problem solve for myself. So highly, highly recommend. I am excited to knit my dad another one of these. I also would love to knit just the round neck version for myself, but I don't know when that will fit into my active whips. But this sweater is one that I would very much recommend. I would also very much recommend the yarn. It is in 100% wool, so it's rustic, but I find that I can wear it next to skin. I'm currently only wearing the sweater and an undergarment right now, and I'm finding it quite comfortable. The caveat is that I tend to not be super reactive when it comes to itchiness in wools. On the same notion of using Canadian yarn, my other finished object is the sheep's heart hat. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, and I rocked this combo all March break while it was very cold in Thunder Bay. The hat uses 3 different yarns from different Canadian yarn establishments. The first yarn here is this fuchsia mohair and wool blend that, I want to say it's called like Wellington Fibers, but it's located in Elora, Ontario. I was gifted this yarn by a lovely woman from Kingston, Ontario, who knew that I was obsessed with pink and had this in her stash and wanted to share it with me. And I have had it caked up, wanting to use it for the perfect project. And there is a lovely woman at the Knit Night who has this hat, and it just looks so amazing. And every time I see her wearing it, I'm like, I want to knit it. It's very similar to the concept photos and the project photos of the sample. And I just love the color scheme, and I knew I had this yarn, and then I was looking through my stash and I was purchasing from, I'm blanking on the name right now. I had a year-long subscription to the Long Way Homestead, which is a company and organization based out of Manitoba with their mission is to kind of make a scene for Canadian wools and different breeds, and every month you would get a different breed of sheep and you get an 100-gram skein, and so you'd get sport to bulky. And anyways, looking in my stash, I'm also not sure which one is which because I was really not great at caking it up or like winding up. So the Long Way Homestead would ship me a skein of yarn that was vacuum packed with a card about the breed and a yarn label tag. I wanted to keep them in their vacuum packed bags for as long as possible to avoid moths and any potential damage to the yarn as such. And so what ended up happening was some of the breeds and the cards got mixed up, and so I didn't really know which one was which. But I did have a nice black or a very, very dark brown and a white that was in like a sport weight density, and so I held them double to do the patterning of the hat. This hat, the Sacred Heart, no, it's not called the Sacred Heart hat. It's called the Sacred Sheep hat by Caitlin Hunter. Offers a whole bunch of different modifications. And I chose to do the short triple folded brim. And I also chose to do the short, crown height of the hat. And I wanted it to be something that was snug to the head, offered a lot of warmth, and that is exactly what I got. This hat was incredibly addicting to knit. The mindlessness of the 1x1 rib was very easy. And then as soon as you got to the colorwork section, it was just wanting to get to the next round, as it oftentimes is when knitting colorwork. And it was super fun to have an 100% Canadian hat. I would highly recommend this to anyone that wants a super cozy hat. There's also different options for gauge. I knit it at the worsted weight gauge, and I'm just overall so pleased with this hat. It is my go-to winter hat. It's funny, I had this like lime green hat that I had made as a test knit for We Made Wardrobe, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but my friend was over and she has this gorgeous red hair, and she picked up this hat and was like, this is my favorite color of green. And so I have gifted that hat to her. She wears it all the time, and this has become my tried and true hat for when it is chilly out and I need an extra layer. So these are my two finished objects. I think they look quite cute together. It's a very Canadian wool outfit. And I would recommend both these patterns to you if you are in need of a hat or a sweater. Although I know we are getting into the warmer weather, and I have not really any warm weather knits on my needles, but that's okay. I'm gonna move into my whips. The first whip I'm going to talk about is a flop, and this is my Billy sweater. So from afar, it probably doesn't look that bad. And as you get closer, you can see that I made a massive boo-boo when I was splitting for the sleeves. So I have a large portion of moss stitch on this side and a tiny, in fact, non-existent portion of moss stitch on this side. I really wanted to finish the Billy. This knit night that I go to, we decided to do a little Billy knit along and cast it on together. This is a knit in Gilead, which is a Durare Natura worsted weight yarn. Incredibly soft, incredible to work with. Was so excited to have this sweater for like Fisherman Core spring. But I was working on the yoke. I kind of set it aside. This winter was pretty chaotic with like getting sick and work and everything, and I just felt like I didn't have the capacity to work on something super complicated, so I knit my legs pullover. But I really wanted to get this done during March break, and my flight was very early in the morning, and I was at the point where I had to make the raglan change. And what this is supposed to look like is there's supposed to be moss stitch on this side and this side of the raglan. But as you can see, there's not. I made this mistake at like 7 a.m. on a plane in the dark. So, knit the yoke. Things are going fine. I'm okay that the raglan is not perfect. And then I got to the point where I had to split for the sleeves. And I'm reading the pattern and I'm looking at my sweater. And I'm reading the pattern and I'm looking at my sweater. And I am like, the math is not mathing. Something is off here. And so I texted one of my friends from Knit Night who has also made this, impatiently didn't wait for her to respond and just wung it. Now at this point, it was salvageable for me to make up for my mistake in the raglan by just splitting the number of moss stitches that I had, and so there would be an even amount instead of a very large amount on one side and a very negligible amount on the other side. But that is not what I did. I just knit it as it appeared, split for the sleeves, and at this point I was looking at the sample photos and I saw that the cable for the raglan disappeared into the moss stitch. At that point, I should have realized I got about maybe 2 inches into the body where I was knitting the moss stitch over the cable, and I just realized that it kind of stopped abruptly. And so I went back, dropped the cable stitches, and picked them up to recable the moss stitches. Again, should have clued in that something was not right and that the math was not mathing, but I didn't. I kept knitting, I kept knitting, I kept knitting. And again, you're like, Paige, how did you not realize this? Did you not look at your knitting? Oh, I did. I looked at it all the time. It's this beautiful all over cabled jumper that I am obsessed with. But it wasn't until I finished and cast off the body, tried it on, went to take a photo of it, and realized something wasn't right. It's totally shifted. And I remember going up, running to my parents and being like, look at my sweater. And my mom going, oh, it's so lovely. And me going, Mom, look at the sweater. And her coming closer and then going, and both of us bursting into laughter. This was such a pain. Not such a pain. I ended up enjoying the process. The stitch pattern's very memorizable, but such a pain to work so hard, to be so excited to have this beautiful sweater that I know I would wear all the time in my wardrobe, to then have this giant mistake. So I got mad at it and I put it away. But I should also mention, on my layover in Toronto, I was working on this sweater and a lovely viewer stopped me to say that she recognized me and to say hi, which I just really thought was like amazing. It's funny to be like at a point where, like, obviously when I'm in like a knitting store context, some people be like, knitting page, and I'm like, yeah. But to be at an airport and kept, like, granted she was knitting, but to have her like pull me up on her phone and be like, is this you? And me be like, yeah, that's me, was just like a really lovely moment, and just something that makes me so grateful for this community, and that, like, yeah, it doesn't matter where I am, there may be someone that recognizes me and like shares this love of the craft, but really love that. But anyways, got mad at this sweater, and so I put it to the side, and this was the only project that I brought on my trip. And I had planned, like, had I had time to do the sleeves, like, it all would have been finished, but I really didn't want to go back and frog back to splitting for the sleeves. And so I put it on a timeout, and I showed up to knit night that week I got back, and one of the lovely ladies there was like, you didn't frog it, did you? And I was like, no. She's like, okay, because I think we can salvage this without you having to reknit the body. I was like, tell me more. I don't want to reknit this body. Her idea, which I am going to try, because regardless of if this doesn't work, if it does work, amazing. If it doesn't work, I'm still back to my original idea. But it's to do sweater surgery on this, which I have never done sweater surgery. I've never cut my knitting, but that is what we are going to attempt. So I'm going to put in a lifeline from the sleeve where I split for the sleeves all the way across, and then to one row below that. I'm going to cut in between my lifelines, and then I'm going to shift it back so that there is an even distribution of stitches. That seems incredibly scary, and so this has gone on ice until I get the nerve to put the lifelines in. And also just have like the time and the attention to put the lifelines in. Report cards are coming up, and so it's like, let's just work on knits that don't involve a lot of thinking and work on getting all my marking and things done for work. But I'm planning to record the process of doing sweater surgery on this bad boy, because I've obviously Kitchener stitched some things like the toe of a sock, but I have never Kitchener stitched cables. I have never cut my knitting. I have never inserted a lifeline after the fact. And so there's a lot of new skills that I will be doing to see if I can correct this. And I'm really hoping I can. The woman at Knit Night, I can name drop her in the future, but for right now I won't. She is just such a wealth of knowledge. And I mean, this Knit Night is like, it is so amazing, and I am so grateful to have all these lovely people in my life. But she's gonna hold my hand. But my first assignment is to put my lifelines in. And maybe I will do that over the Easter weekend. It is after report cards, and I have 4 days off, and I will be in PEI that weekend. So maybe I'll also record that. But yeah, first step is to put the lifelines in, which I will record. And then the second step is to bring it into Knit Night. Make sure my lifelines are in correctly, and then we're going to cut. And that just seems so scary. But if I end up cutting it and I have to frog it back, like I'd already have to frog it back to the split for the sleeves anyways to correct. So we're gonna attempt to put the lifelines in and cut it before I just go back and frog. So stay tuned for that. I would love to have this Billy done because she is just an icon. The navy, the cables, it is so what I want to wear, but she's going for a little vacation. I have cast it on a new project that I will show you. And that is the Tulip sweater. This is a pattern by Other Loops, and I'm a huge fan of Other Loops patterns. Watching the spring planning videos from some other knitting YouTubers, the Tulip sweater kept popping up in either like their like spring knitting videos in terms of like their plans or in spring knitting patterns, and I thought it was really delightful. There's also another lady at Knit Night who's knitting this gorgeous purple sweater for Easter, and I thought, what a cute idea to knit an Easter sweater. And then I was like, tulip sweater, Easter, I like the idea of this. And I have this shelter in my stash that I have been saving for the perfect project. And shelter is a woolen spun yarn. It's a very, very nice yarn. It is very expensive. I got it on sale in this lovely color Foothills, and I've been waiting for the perfect project to use this like very luxurious yarn for what I usually knit with. And I wanted to do something cabled. I initially wanted to do the Billy cardigan in this yarn, but after knitting the Billy sweater and having some fault there, I was like, I can't even wrap my head around doing something super complicated. But the tulip sweater, there's just something so beautiful about it. This is the front, and it has these 3 tulip cables going down. And then at the back, I kept it as written in the pattern, where you have this like stockinette V with these 2 cables that go down. And I just thought it's so beautiful. This like gray green is like the perfect color for Easter in my mind, without it being like too over the top. Again, I have goals to work through my stash, which I do have a stash video that I'm planning to film as I reorganize my stash. But yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. I didn't swatch, which I don't think I'm gonna pay for. This sweater's supposed to be oversized. We're gonna roll with it. It's obviously going to grow a lot because it's rib and cables, and it's just going to relax and be all lovely. And Shelter is a yarn that blooms. I have made one swatch for the Billy, and it bloomed and just looked so lovely that I'm so excited to have this sweater. It has been such a fun knit. Like if you've never done cables before, this as a first cable project, would highly recommend. There isn't a lot of cabling going on, but it looks really fancy because the rows in between your cable are just stockinette for this section. So you're really not cabling that much. There's only 5 cables I'm knitting the second size, but there's only 5 cables in the second size. I'm not sure about other sizes, but it's very, very manageable. It's ribbing. There's some twisted rib for the finishing. I'm afraid I might be playing yarn chicken, and so I have left the body on the needles and I am working the sleeves. Again, the sleeves are ribbing for all of the underneath with a beautiful tulip cable going down the top shoulder. It is a drop shoulder construction. It is, at least I found knitting the panels to be very enjoyable, very easy. And I think I'm gonna have it done in time for Easter. It has been flying off the needles. I have really been loving the process of this. And I think for like a spring sweater, it's made out of 100% wool. So I do love mohair, but it can be quite hot, that this will be such a great sweater for the spring. The weather here on the East Coast, we've had days of spring, and right now it is overcast and gloomy. We had a snowstorm last week, and so there's still lots of time to wear some woolly knits, and I am just so happy with the progress of this sweater. I would really like to knit a vest version at some point, not the V-neck vest, but just like knitting basically the sweater pattern and then just adding twisted rib on the sleeves and on the neckband as well. But Shelter has been such a joy to work with. I purchased it from Needles in the Hay, which is a yarn shop located in Peterborough, Ontario. And the pattern, fairly easy to follow. I'd say there's a couple instances where I've had to like double check and just make sure the math is mathing. But overall, very, very enjoyable. And I think, again, it'll be the perfect knit for Easter. I have one other work in progress that I have been working on. Again, there are some other whips that have kind of been like here and there. It's been a while since I sat down and recorded, but the two that I'm showing you right now are the ones that I'm working on most recently. Now this bad boy, oh, she's been around for a while. This is the Talia cardigan, and it is a pattern from this Sandnes Garn book. This is Sandnes Garn 2305. And I am modifying this pattern. I'm just gonna go to the project photos if I can find them. Why can't I find it? This is the Talia cardigan. Super cute, super simple, but I'm gonna modify it. I have already added a decent amount of length to the body. I'm knitting it in Sandnes Garn Line in the colorway Kit, or I forget what the other name is for it, but it's 1015. Very classic colorway. I have knit, this is my first garment in Line, but I have knit the blouse number 1 in tin Line. It's machine washable, it like wears super well. It's just a really lovely yarn, and so I'm very excited to have it, another garment in Line. I have finished the body and the sleeves of the cardigan. And as you can see in the photos, there is just a little like button closure here. I was initially gonna do that, but I feel like the bow tie closure has been very popular, and I think it would just look so darling in this like summer cardigan. And so my plan is to pick up an I-cord and go all around the edges of the cardigan and just do a nice little I-cord edging. And then I'm going to knit 3 to 4 I-cord ties. It's going to depend on how far I want them spaced and whatnot. But that is my plan for my Talia cardigan. So it's not exactly the Talia cardigan, it's Talia cardigan with a twist, but I think this is just gonna be super cute for spring and summer. I think it'll be a nice little cover up to wear to the beach this summer in Nova Scotia. And yeah, very pleased to have this off my needles. It's been a slog. It's been on my needles since 2023, 2022, no, can't be 2022 because this book came out in 2023, but it's been on my needles since 2023, and I'm excited to have it off. It feels really good to clear a long-standing whip, make room both mentally and physically for some new projects. But yeah, the sleeves are very narrow. It's a very tight-fitting cardigan. There's not a lot of ease to it. As you can see in the photo, it is supposed to be cropped. I have knit it to like hip length. It's just kind of where I think I would get the most utility out of it. But yeah, I think this cardigan with like a little camisole underneath with the bow tie front will just be really darling to wear to work casually. I'm curious to see if I can get, I've been like the tie front ones, fun to see if you can wear it with the ties at the back or the ties at the front, like I have done with my Vienna blouse that I also customized from Sandnes Garn. But I know these books are hard to come by, so whether you find this book, but I think knitting this cardigan out of Line for a summer cardigan is something I would recommend to anyone if they are looking for something lightweight and breathable. And I think Line might be my favorite summer yarn that I have worked with. And this colorway with like the slight marly, heathery color, I think is perfect, just to give it a bit more depth and dimension. So I have 2 whips. Both of them are making really great progress. Well, I guess I have this one. We'll see if there's an update on this, but no promises here. I'm a little terrified of this one, but that is where I am at. I have one acquisition, which is this lovely hand-dyed sock yarn that my dear friend Leah gifted to me for my birthday. We were on a roll where we were meeting up once a week to knit. We met through knitting Instagram, which is so amazing. I love that for the knit community. And we haven't met up this winter because it's just been crazy. But we met up a couple weeks ago and she gifted me this yarn and it is just so beautiful. I don't know if I'm gonna do socks or if I'm gonna do a tank top out of it. I would kind of like to get back on like the sock knitting mojo and knit, like, I don't know, there's something about just like plain ribbed socks that I think would be so cute. I like thrifted these little white Mary Jane ballet flats that I think with some hand knit socks would just make for a really cute statement to an outfit. But it is botanical fibers and it's a naturally dyed yarn that is made here in Nova Scotia. So another Canadian yarn. Anyways, thank you, Leah, if you're watching this. But yeah, that is all that I have for today. I'm going to release a spring planning video as well, which I'm really excited to sit down and record, but recording a podcast is easy and straightforward, and I felt like I had to give you updates on what I'm knitting before I can tell you what I'm planning to knit, because you might be like, but Paige, that seems like so much, but you'll be like, oh, but you're already making progress. So yeah, that is all for today. And I am really grateful for my studio light. It's a really dark and gloomy day and it is making filming so much easier to sit down and film regardless of whether there's lots of natural light. So till next time, goodbye.